Living with a chronic condition can be a difficult thing at any stage of life, but it is even more challenging when one is an adolescent, because this is a stage where emotional life can be rocky. Today on News in Depth, we join Effie Mpande as she looks at the challenges of HIV treatment in adolescents and what is being done to address them. She will also be profiling a young lady who shares her story of being born with HIV. My name is Pennifer Nyirenda. We're coming into this week's edition of News in Depth. Do stay tuned.
This is Shambala Diangamo. Shambala was born with HIV. She always had to take medicine even when she did not know the reason why. Shambala found out she was HIV positive when she was in grade 4.
When disclosing to me, I wasn't alone. I was with my elder sister and my elder cousin as well. Both of them are girls. So she disclosed to me and she told me that I was born with HIV and AIDS through mother to child, because I was just from learning it. So she said, what your teacher explained is true, and that's how you're born with it. That's why you have to take your medication, and you always have to take them at the right time. Make sure you always eat.
But Shambala was too young to understand what it meant to be HIV positive. She always had someone to remind her to take her medication. In 2009, she began to understand HIV. Stigma also set in. As an adolescent then, she encountered disclosure dilemmas when it came to her medication.
And then you'd find when I want to go for school trips, it would be difficult because I would always have to carry the medication, and my mom would always have to inform a teacher on duty that she always needs to take this. So there were times whereby you're sharing a room, we go for a school trip, you're sharing a room with your friends, and they start to ask you, why do you take this medication? And you don't know how to explain why you're taking the medication.
Living with a chronic condition is difficult at any stage of life. But it is more difficult when one is an adolescent because it is a stage where emotional life can be unsteady.
An adolescent is basically someone who's between a child and an adult. So by definition of the World Health Organization, is someone aged between 10 and 19 years. So it's that time when you are changing from being a child to becoming an adult, and you start feeling like you are neither, so you're not really fitting in.
But loosely, in a place like here in Zambia, we refer to a group of adolescents, including those that are beyond 19 years of age, so that we can, because their needs are a bit similar. So sometimes we would go up to ages 23 when planning activities for adolescents, or up to 24.
There are different ways of catching an HIV infection. Dr. Muya, a consultant pediatrician at the Center of Excellency, now talks about the mode of transmission of HIV in adolescents.
There are two ways in which adolescents get HIV. The commonest one is from mother to child. Those that are born with HIV, then they grow into adolescence. Then we have those that may get it, they are not infected when they were born from their moms, then they get it as when they enter into sexual activities.
In about 2 decades, pediatric HIV and AIDS treatment and care programs have been scaled up in Zambia. Today, more adolescents have been put on life-saving antiretroviral drugs or HIV medicines. However, there has been little focus on the psychosocial impact of HIV in adolescents.
Unfortunately, most of the training around HIV counseling has been adult-tailored, and it doesn't respond to the needs and challenges of adolescents. Adolescent is actually a huge stage, a very turbulent stage, when adolescents are trying to grapple with issues of sexuality, issues of identity, issues of self-awareness. So we need to actually tailor the service in terms of addressing the needs of adolescents.
What we did was to test the model and approach, and we just disseminated the findings last year. Having tested that, now we have to now ensure that the program is integrated in the mainstream training institutions. For instance, right now, we have a team from Johns Hopkins University training counselors in the SITA approach. They are right now at Levi Mwanawasa University.
Disclosing the HIV status to a child can be difficult for parents and guardians. Experts have advice on how parents and guardians need to handle the process.
Usually the minimum we would encourage is for them to disclose by the time the child is 10 years of age. But, children vary and the parents know better. They know their children better. Some of them are very inquisitive and they will start asking questions quite much early that they will ask, but why am I getting these medicines? So the clever ones, we can even start disclosing them slowly. Okay, on such issues, we encourage that if the child is asking at a much younger age, where you feel that they may not keep information confidential, then we just tell them things like, no, you are taking this medication because there's something that's that's destroying your system, so that these drugs are keeping you strong. Okay, such that by the time now they reach the age where they will understand and keep information, then you can tell them, actually, what I had mentioned that time was HIV.
If the child is not told and they get to hear it from somewhere else, it also has got a negative, serious, repercussion. Because when a child gets to know, one of the issues that is actually common is that sometimes they blame the parents for this acquired status. Sometimes they ask a lot of questions which parents might not be very ready to answer.
Devi, not his real name, is another adolescent who was born with HIV but unaware of it. He often fell sick. Devi was 12 years at the time.
The time they told me my HIV status, it's the time when I started feeling ill. There were some sicknesses that I started getting sick of. Then from that time, my aunt is the one who took me to a certain clinic. That clinic, they had to check me down, scan for VCT. Then they told my aunt, is there anything wrong with him? This when she said that no, he's been that sick often and often. Then after that, we had to go for VCT. VCT went for VCT, then from there they transferred us to the University Teaching Hospital, UTH. From there, then we started going through processes. After that, then I found myself at PIDS, Pediatric Center of Excellence.
On 16th June 2012, Devi was put on HIV treatment. The news of his HIV status disturbed him a lot.
I was in grade 7, so it was pretty hard for me because I was writing my exams by that actual day. And it really dropped me down to a point where I had to think of it, because it also disturbed me coming to my exams. It brought some thoughts in my mind, because by that time, back then, people those adverts that used to be showing on TV, HIV is a deadly virus. So by that time I used to have that thought, and that's how it used to be. It took me badly by that time. The defaulting that I had is by missing each and every day, I miss, as in time taking. So I had this kind of scenario where I had to go no symptoms were showing, but I just got I was becoming thin. From that time, then I got back to a mentor that counseled me from that time, sat me down in the same clinic called UTH hospital. They sat me down. From that time, started counseling me. Then I got to understand what HIV was.
Isaac, not his real name, was also not aware of his HIV status until mid-adolescent.
Firstly, I was admitted to the hospital. I had a meningitis attack, so I was admitted almost a month. I was in the hospital. Then they did test there and then I think as soon they found it, but I was not told there and then. So, but I was on medication. I was taking my medicine. I didn't know what I was taking. So after I was out home, I used to come here for appointments, and then so there's a day the doctor asked me, do you know why you come here? Do you know why you're taking your medicine? Then I was like, no, I don't know. I told him I don't know. So I usually used to come with my aunt. And he asked my aunt, you haven't told him where he's taking. So the doctor told me, and then.
Dave and Isaac are not the only adolescents living with HIV. There are many more.
Currently, the statistics we have actually are for age groups between 15 to 19, which are captured during the Zambia Demographic Health Survey. So we have among young girls aged 15 to 19 is 3.8, and among young boys is 1.8. So average is about 2.8 HIV prevalence between of young people aged between 15 and 19.
The data from Zamfir shows that among the females, the prevalence was about 3.3%. That means that about 3% of young people aged between 15 to 19 actually had HIV infection, whereas in males it was slightly lower at 1.6 prevalence. So the prevalence is the number of individuals that have HIV at any one point. Then you also have the number of new infections. So how many adolescents get new infection each year? Again, based on the Zamfir information from 2016, it's just under 1% for both males and females.
HIV prevention programs are key to reducing the transmission of the disease. And the Ministry of Health is aware that putting in place HIV prevention programs tailored for adolescents can go a long way in curbing the spread of the virus.
We appreciate the fact that we need to train our health providers so that they understand who an adolescent is, their needs, so that they are able to provide adolescent HIV-friendly services. And we also realize that young people open up to their peers when they are faced with a problem. Most of the time they will first seek counsel from their colleagues. So what we are doing, we are working with young people who we are training as peer educators, and those are complementing the work of health providers in promoting accessibility of adolescents to information and services of HIV.
For someone to practice prevention, they must have the knowledge. So I think sensitization on the different ways of preventing HIV in adolescents is very important. And you can only practice prevention if you know your status. So it's to encourage them to make sure everybody knows their HIV status. Then there are different prevention methods which are available. I think the common ones, of course, will be abstinence, using condoms.
Adolescents infected with HIV have additional risks of having mental illness, and if not addressed, can impact negatively on their life.
Others grapple with issues of depression. Others grapple with issues of suicidal ideation. But also the issue of living with the status itself and the issues of the disclosure itself is an issue that has got takes a serious mental toll on an adolescent.
There comes in a problem because you are talking about issues of self-image. Some adolescents that, for instance, were born HIV positive have issues to do with self-image because some of them are stunted, some of them have rashes on their bodies that really affect how they look at themselves. But apart from that, just being HIV positive itself impacts on how you are going to socialize, because some adolescents are discriminated, so we can't run away from the fact that there's stigma and discrimination.
This is the Pediatric Center of Excellency at the University Teaching Hospitals. There are a lot of activities that go on here. Children below the age of 10, adolescents and young people come here on different days, and there are programs tailored for each age group.
We talk to them on adolescence process, on the disclosure process, and we talk to them on reproductive health. We talk to them on transitioning, because from here again they will go back. They will go to Adult Center of Excellence where they are going to mix with the adults. So we also talk to them on infectious conditions, that they have the HIV, facts of HIV and AIDS.
Taking medicine can be challenging, especially for adolescents, and they have their own reasons for defaulting.
And then at the point I just said, you know what, I'm not sick, I'm not going to die, so why should I continue taking this medication? And my mom didn't know anything about it. It was only later on when I went to the hospital and they started asking me, why is it that you're not taking medication? Because now I had transitioned from first line to second line. It means you're not taking your medication. What's going on? What's the problem? And I said, there's nothing wrong. It's just that I don't think that I'm sick. I'm okay. Why should I continue taking medication? So I went through a bit of counseling and so on and so forth. But, you know, as an adolescent, you still have that. It's true. You're not yet convinced.
The thing that made me default is because of the same things that I used to watch on TV, saying, no, those people that are sick of HIV would die in a period of time. So that thing used to discourage me all the time when I look at that kind of advert or listen to kind of programs.
The first thing I stopped was, first they didn't tell me, they've been lying to me, I've just been taking the medicine. I didn't know I was taking the medicine, so I just decided to stop. Why am I even taking this? And then the second why I stopped was I was the only one from my other sibling. And my other sibling is not on that, I am. So it just hit me like, okay, why me?
HIV treatment helps people who are infected with the disease to live healthy lives. Experts say taking HIV medication daily as prescribed can provide many benefits.
The goal of treatment is to get the viral load to levels where it is not detectable. So the effect of not taking the medicines properly is losing that viral suppression. So if someone was on treatment, say for 8 years or 5 years, and the viral load was undetectable, meaning every year when they go to the hospital, they check the viral load, undetectable. If they stop taking their medicine or they take it intermittently, the viral load will quickly, very quickly, within a few weeks, come back up again. So that's usually the first thing that happens. The viral load becomes uncontrolled, it goes up, and they may feel well, they may not have any problems whatsoever, they may not even realize it.
But not taking HIV medication daily or skipping doses can make the medicine to stop working, and experts warn that this can put the patient at a higher risk of developing AIDS, which can be life-threatening.
Many people are familiar with CD4 count, which is the number of cells that fight infection, the immune cells that fight infection. So once the viral load is no longer controlled, then the CD4 also starts to drop, and that can take several months, sometimes even a year. And then after that, that's when you see the more obvious things like somebody getting sick more frequently. So by the time somebody is getting sick more frequently, the loss of HIV control would have occurred many months earlier.
HIV medicines can help people live longer and healthier lives. Shambhala knows too well the repercussions that come with not taking medication.
I was hit with streptococcal meningitis, and then I was admitted in the hospital for over a month. So after being admitted, I started continuing to take my medication, and then afterwards I wasn't going to school, and a month later I was also hit with TB. So it was a very trying moment, but the good part about that is that during that time I had friends. You know, I had peer educators who were there for me. I also had a peer mentor who was there for me. He was my uncle. So he told me, he's like, you know what, if you don't get yourself together, you're really going to fall sick and you'll never come out.
There are many challenges in treating HIV in adolescents. Many fear this could reverse the gains made in tackling HIV.
From our side as health workers, the problems that we see is, the main one that we see is that here's a child, particularly those that are born with HIV, the child has been taking medication from birth, they are doing well, they are obeying their parents. By the time they reach the age now of trying to understand, of adolescence, they're trying to understand, why am I taking this medication? If they haven't yet been disclosed to, it becomes a very big problem because now they don't understand why they're taking medication. So you find a child who had been doing well, they enter into adolescence, they now start having issues like they can't take their medication, adherence becomes a problem.
The fact that the young person himself or herself, is full of, life, they don't want to be on treatment. Especially those that learn that they're HIV positive because their mothers are the ones that could have infected them. They more or less become rebellious. They wouldn't want to be on medication. But after talking to them, they usually give in and they start this particular medication. But over and above, I think it's also issues to do with stigma. They feel that if their fellow young people know that they're HIV positive, they would probably shun them, they would probably stigmatize them, and probably just exclude them altogether.
There is strong evidence suggesting that persons living with HIV cannot pass on the virus to their partner if they adhere to treatment. But adherence to HIV treatment is said to be a huge challenge among adolescents. What is being done to address this situation?
We have a number of strategies that we are employing depending on the expertise and the number of adolescents who are on ART in a given institution. We have, for example, some institutions that have formed support groups of young people who are living with HIV so that they are able to encourage one another. They consult one another in terms of maybe they're facing challenges on how to handle side effects and when they feel discouraged or they want to give up. So those support groups are encouraged in some facilities and they are working very well. And what we are trying to do as a ministry is to see how we can scale up those approaches to lower levels or to facilities where they don't have such groups.
At 22, Shambala is now fully aware of her status and is a lead peer mentor for the Positive Linkages Initiative, which was set up by the National AIDS Council, NAC. She visits health facilities 3 to 4 times in a week to encourage young people and adolescents to take their medicine.
So after that, I started taking my medication properly. I became a peer educator. I became a volunteer. And even throughout that process, I was still going through the acceptance phase, trying to accept what is currently happening to me, because I did have a lot of hatred in me and also a lot of hatred towards my mom, because I was trying to understand why is it that it's only me that is like this, my elder sister is not like this, so what makes her so special and what makes her different? Are you sure it's just me? Maybe you're the one to blame, this is what happened, and so on and so forth.
She has also become a strong advocate for issues affecting adolescents.
Resources need to be put in place for these adolescent-friendly spaces, and also just a proper monitoring visit to these spaces, because sometimes you'll find today you have young people, tomorrow you have different people. I believe if you've allocated a place for young people and you're saying this is a youth-friendly space, come what may be, that space must not be occupied by anyone.
There is evidence suggesting that peers relate easily with one another. Shambala is calling for an increase in the number of youth health-friendly spaces.
The only thing I believe that needs to be done, and one of the most important things about the youth-friendly spaces, is to increase them. They are really, it's very few places where they have very few hospitals, health facilities, where they have quite a big space to accommodate more than maybe 10 people. But most of them are really small. You can only have maybe 5, less than 10 people.
Other facilities are opting to procure tents, which they mount outside, and those serve as adolescent health spaces. But we are also working with partners who have facilities within the communities, outside the facilities, standalone facilities for adolescents.
Shambala had applied to study international economics and trade in China and was accepted. But in 2017, she was sent back because of her HIV status. In future, Shambala intends to study public health or medicine. But with her mother, who was a breadwinner, dead, her desire to study public health or medicine is slowly fading away.
There needs to be, I don't know if I can call it, I don't know if we should call it a fund or something put in place to help vulnerable adolescents, be it HIV positive or not. What I've seen, majority of the young people or those relating to HIV and AIDS, those who are positive, many of them are orphans, dependents or self-dependents, and the challenge they mostly face is education, going to tertiary institutions.
Shambala has her own fears.
There are times whereby when you go to and tell a guy, okay, so here's the situation, you've got the whole environment, you filled in the whole steps of disclosure. It's just that fear of rejection, The fear of being rejected is painful. It hurts a lot. And you also start to think that maybe this guy might think I was promiscuous, even before I get to finish and say, it's not that I was promiscuous, but it's because I was born this way.
The adolescents have a message.
When you're on Earth, it's not the end of your life. You can still progress in each and everything you'd want to do. As in coming back, it's just a virus. It's just HIV is just a virus that can be maintained by adherent to medication.
It's not the end of the world when you're found HIV positive. It's not a death sentence. There are people out there that have got that are sick of things worse than HIV. There are people that are on diabetes injecting themselves, but people with HIV is easy, just take your medicine every day.
Shambala also has a message for adolescents who are living with HIV.
My message to them would be, take your time. Don't rush to a conclusion, but at the same time, if you need to speak to someone, do so. It's better to speak to someone than to keep it to yourself, because when you have all that built in you, you have suicidal thoughts, you have there's hatred that starts to build up, and sometimes hatred may lead to you to hurting other people.
Not adhering to HIV treatment can come with many challenges, but experts say many people who are HIV positive can now live much longer when taking antiretroviral drugs.
Thank you so much for watching. Here is where we close this week's presentation of News in Depth, where Effie Mpande was looking at the challenges of HIV treatment in adolescents and, of course, what is being done to address these challenges. We do hope that the program was informative, and we urge you to join us next week for yet another interesting News in Depth documentary. From me, Penny Fanyerenda, and the entire production team, we say goodbye and God bless you.